welcome to Manic Movies, a series where we talk about the madness of movies. I am Ryanimaniac, and welcome back to The Road to the Endgame. We're taking a look at all the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe leading up to the events of Avengers Endgame. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at Ant-Man and the Wasp from 2018. So the story of this film pretty much is serving as an explanation as to where Ant-Man was during the events of Avengers Infinity War. It's revealed that after he was captured by the government in the events of Captain America Civil War, they cut a deal with him that if he served 2 years house arrest, he wouldn't have to go to prison. So basically, for the entirety of the 2 years since the events of Captain America Civil War, he's been under house arrest. And what we pick up with him in the film, he's only got a couple days left till he's off his house arrest, and he's finally a free man again. He's going to be starting up a new business with his old heist buddies. So he's now getting a legitimate life. But all that changes when Hank and Hope return to his lives, because they think they've found a way to delve into the quantum realm and come back similar to the way Scott did in the first film. And they think that Scott could do it, that theoretically they should also be able to get down there to retrieve Janet Hope, Hank's wife and Hope's mother. So the film revolves around them pretty much putting together this big machine so that they can dive into the quantum realm and retrieve Janet. All the while, there's also this villain known as Ghost who's also trying to pretty much use the machine, but more for a means of extracting the quantum energy from Janet so that she can make herself better, because she has this ailment in which she's constantly phasing through realms. Like, her molecules are constantly being ripped apart and torn apart and put back together again over and over constantly, and it causes her such tremendous pain, and with each time it happens she grows closer and closer to fading out entirely. So she's basically trying to use that with the help of an old colleague of Hank's to extract that quantum energy so that she can be healed. So for the most part, the film is very similar to the first one, very heist sort of film, real jokey, lots of fun shrinking and growing things, and it is a fun time. But I will say, kind of similar to Guardians 2, it does sort of come off a bit too jokey compared to the first film. Not to say the jokes are bad in this film, like, a lot of the jokes in the film are very funny, but also it's got the problem of having a very compelling, overarching plot and thing that are trying to get to getting Janet back. And it is actually a very compelling plot, so it's really distracting at times where the movie just sort of pauses just to take some time to tell jokes. I don't know, that might just be me. I don't know, it just felt like every couple minutes it'll just stop to just crack jokes for a bit, then suddenly bring it back to the plot. Which, I mean, again, these are funny jokes and all, but it's just, when there's such a good setup going on there, it's annoying to suddenly just stop and go tell jokes for a bit. Everybody does give a good performance, yet again. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, good performance. Evangeline Lilly as Hope, I remembered her name this time. She gives a good performance. It's nice to see her now in the fighting game, because in the first film she was sort of just in the background, being one of the voices or the people that helps train Scott to do the big heist. So it was nice in this one to see her also, who is clearly a capable fighter, getting out there in the field and fighting. And with the addition that not only can she shrink, but she can also fly and has blasters and stuff. So that leads to a lot of fun stuff. The old heist crew, they're pretty fun. And once again, the little girl playing Cassie is back. And as like in the first film, that whole relationship with her and Paul Rudd's Scott just feels genuine. They feel like they're genuinely family. How do they pull this off so well? I don't know. Because they just have this weird, goofy quirkiness to them, and I just love it. We also do get another pretty good Marvel villain with Ghost. Like I said, she's constantly dealing with the fact that our molecules are being ripped apart and put back together constantly every moment, and she's got a pretty good motivation as opposed to just, I want to take over the world. Her motivation is, by comparison, I just want the pain to stop. That's all it is. I mean, the way she goes about it is kind of questionable. The fact that she's willing to kidnap Cassie at one point, or outright kill Janet. That's when it starts delving a bit more into the villain side of things, but at the same time, she's been living with this constant pain for so many years, so it kind of makes sense she would be getting this desperate when she's supposedly at this point in the film only has weeks or even days before she fades away forever, so it kind of is a good setup for her. I want to say she was the best of villains. I want to say she's still better than stuff like Zemo or Ultron, but at the same time she's not up to the things of like Vulture or, you know, Loki and such. But to be fair, the preceding villain did kind of leave a bit of an impact, so any villain that was going to follow him was kind of going to be a bit of a step down by comparison. But like I said, she is a good villain. She does have a good motivation. And even Lawrence Fishburne playing Bill Foster, this old colleague of Hank's, who, you know, one of the many people in Hank's career who he just did not agree with due to his massive ego. He has a good motivation as well, trying to right Hank's wrongs, thinking Hank only ever cares about himself. So he does have good motivation, but also at the same time not being outright evil. He's just trying to do the right thing, just going about it the wrong way. I will say the one villain of this film that's very sorely disappointing is the dude Sonny. He's just this generic gangster guy, and he doesn't really do a lot aside from just waltz around and act all casual, like, "You will tell me where Mr. Lang and him, Dr. Pym are." And he doesn't really come off as much of a threat. He's just some generic goon, which, I mean, those can be fun and all, but when you have a hero that can shrink and grow and such, you want to see someone that kind of matches up to that. Not just some generic gangster dude that just spews one-liners, and that's about it. I mean, he's not in the film too long, so he's not unbearable, but every time he is there, it does kind of a drag whenever he's there. It is fun to get back to more of that whole shrinking and growing aspect like there was in the first film, but more into the fact that this film, as opposed to the last film where it was more everything, him shrinking and growing, this time there's actually a balance, since, you know, in the events of Civil War, it's revealed he's learned how to grow, so we get a nice balance of that. Nice scenes of him being able to shrink down and, you know, get tiny and beat the dudes up, but also growing humongous to the point he freaks out a bunch of people on a boat. It's cool to see that more aspect, and I like even growing other objects, like throwing the Pez dispenser out and making it giant, and shrinking down bikes. That's all really fun and all. It was good to see that again. It was also interesting to see more of Hank, how he uses the shrinking technology in his day-to-day life. For example, the fact that his giant lab, he shrinks down to the size of a suitcase. And that was fun. And also the fact that he's got this large assortment of vehicles that he keeps in a Hot Wheels case. And that they can shrink them and grow them up to whatever their needs are. And also that they can shrink the cars while they're driving in them. All this sort of fun stuff with the whole shrinking and growing aspect that really is a lot of fun. So it was nice to see a lot more of that in the film. Stan Lee's cameo in the film is that of a bystander on the street when Hope and Luis are in the highway towards the end of the film. He's about to get into his car, in which his car is one of the things that are shrunk, and he proceeds to say, "Well, the 60s were great, but now I'm paying for it." And sadly as it is, that was his final cameo in the MCU before his unfortunate passing. I mean, he does have a cameo again in Captain Marvel, and he will have his final cameo in Avengers Endgame, but knowing that is his last cameo before his passing was very sad. But all in all, I thought that the film was good, but again, very much like Guardians 2, it does take a lot, like, there are moments where it just feels like it just goes on to being more jokey for too long for my liking. Like, for instance, there's a scene where they lose the lab, and, you know, they have to find a way to track it, so they think, oh, we'll find this diffractor in an old suit that happens to be stored in a trophy that Cassie stole for show and tell, that, you know, they can turn it into a tracker for the lab. So there's a whole scene about them, you know, breaking into the school and stealing the old suit and all that. And it's more of these jokes about Sky's regulator and his new suit isn't working, so he gets super small, he looks like a kid, and it's funny and all. It's really funny, but at the same time, it doesn't really add anything to the plot. It's like, honestly, you could have just had something where it's like, we gotta find the lab. Well, good thing I put a tracker. And that whole scene of them sneaking into the school could have been cut out entirely. It just feels kind of pointless. And like I said, it just feels like an excuse to tell jokes as opposed to furthering the story along. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's funny. It really is funny and well written, but at the same time, it doesn't add anything to the plot. So there's just a lot of moments in the film like that irritate me, which makes me not really like it quite as much as I do the first one. Because as boring as some aspects were in the first one, at least for the most part, it was a straight line in its plot and didn't just stop to tell jokes that didn't really add anything. So I don't know. I do like it. It's just I don't really care for the aspect that there's so many moments that they just stop to tell jokes and it doesn't add anything to the film. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have finally watched all the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's been a fun ride rewatching all these, so yeah, I guess I'm pretty much prepared for Endgame, so yes, be sure to tune in for the next episode to see the thrilling conclusion where we finally take a look at Avengers! Hello? Who are you? Greetings, Mr. Maniac. I'm Special Agent Johnson from S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here with a very important message for you. S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Don't try to fool me, buddy. Hey, I know that S.H.I.E.L.D. got shut down when it was revealed Hydra agents were within it. Don't try to pull that whole I'm an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing on me, buddy. Yes, it's true that the original S.H.I.E.L.D. was disbanded, but that is a very classified and complicated explanation I cannot give to you this time. I'm here to simply relay a message. You are not done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe quite yet, sir. What do you mean? I looked at all the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I watched everything. I watched all the films. There's nothing left to look at. Yes, Mr. Maniac, you have reviewed all 21 films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to this point, which I wish to commend you for. But there is also an extremely important aspect of it you have neglected to review up to this point that deserves equal recognition. What else could there possibly be left of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I haven't looked at yet? Oh. You couldn't possibly mean... Yes, Mr. Maniac, I do mean that.